Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial how to model a dustpan in Shapr3D. In this process focus video I will show you how we will first set up some basic sketches to explore the proportional layout of the dustpan before we will add more sketches and details to then finalize our design. Before we get started, let's make sure that our scene is set to inches and all our snapping targets are turned on. This file with all the sketches will be shared with you so you can use it while following this video. Great, let's get started. Before you can go ahead and model something, you really want to take measurements. That's very good practice because you can basically block out the overall dimensions before we really go into details. What you see here right now is the top sketch. I have the width of my dustpan, which is 8 inches. I have the length, which is around 6 inches. And you see down here also I have 2 lines. They symbolize one more time the length of the dustpan and the length of the handle, around 5 inches. What is very interesting about this process I'm going to show you in this video is how I use the grid and clean dimensions to make sure sketch elements from various views intersect at points where I needed to intersect. So keep in mind, now that I said this is 6 inches long. How did I draw, for example, this arc? As you can see here, this is just made via a spline that uses the control points. The curve has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So 2 points each on one on the ends. They are for the tangency. So the curve is actually tangent to the line at the bottom and the spline is tangent to a line on top. And then with the point in between, I can further then style actually the shape. I also have here in between a line. This is a little bit redundant to the line down here. It's exactly the same, but it helps me for dimensioning purpose. So when I select this line, there you see where it is. Here at this point I locked it, so everything can only grow to the left side. Okay. Let's take a look at another sketch. There we can show you why I pointed out how to use the grid and clean dimensions to make sure that elements intersect where I want them. So let's turn on the side sketch. Go to this view. Now this is very easy to draw everything from the side the way how I want everything to be, but the problem is, I don't really see the top sketch. So how can I make sure that this arc, where it stops at the left side, this really sits on this line? Yeah? So, few things. First, the top sketch is just on the ground. There we have it. And that means that my arc has to stop also kind of like on the ground to the x-axis on the right side in this case. And from the z-axis, which I'm marking here, to the left side, that is now 6 inches. And you see, there is this point. So when the arc starts at 6 inches away from the z point to the left side, but lined up on the x-axis, this will then result into these 2 sketches sharing a point right there. And that's essentially really the trick. So we don't use any sketch intersections or so. We simply make sure that we position all our elements where they have to be manually. This works really well. Obviously, we need to be careful about how we use the grid. So when we position it, make sure 6" really is 6" in each sketch. But then this way, it's very easy to create sketches that define a three-dimensional volume. What is further interesting to take a look at here is I have two interesting lines. The one on the left that defines a measurement of the dustpan more to the tip, and the line on the back that is more the measurement of a certain position. And that then helped me to figure out how much this line has to be rotated. So again here, I just used the grid with this line, putting down a measurement, because this then helped me to understand the radius for this arc. Similar to the spline, also here I drew now a vertical line to make that arc tangent to this line, and so that points don't move in general. When needed, as you can see, I locked them. Very good. And then here I have just a line segment which ended on the top of this point here. So when I change this to 2, there you see how everything will update. And to continue a line for the handle, I drew then a second line and made it tangent to the first line. Very easy. Okay. Let me hide this. We will go back to this sketch. I extruded everything up sufficiently, higher than, for example, needed. I'm overbuilt on purpose. Because this is now the next step to see, well, I made the sketch. How does everything look? Okay, let's round this edge. I can select the edge and then use the fillet command. Very nice. But how can we round this corner when we do not want this to look like a G1 fillet? So I do not want this to look like a quarter arc. I want this to be more a custom shape. For this, let's go back one step. So we have the original edge. I will hide everything else. Go to the left view and I will turn on corner rounding. And let's take a look at what we have there. So here's an arc I drew, and I made the arc tangent to each line and gave it a dimension of 1 inch. And then I drew a CV spline. One at the start, one on this line, another on this line, and one at the end. And then I made each spline one time tangent to this line, tangent to this line. The really nice part about SketchUp and the sketch engine is, you see right here where I'm tapping, there are no lines. Now when I start drawing a spline, and then I move the spline onto the edge, you see it projects in the edges from that geometry into the sketch. So I can very precisely position the spline onto my geometry. Then not by definition, based on how I position then these control points, I can very nicely define the oval shape of the spline. And then when I go into a perspective view, select the fill, select this edge, I now am giving the possibility to do a sweep body, which I do. With the sweep body done, I will select the main body, select my sweep result, and perform a Boolean subtract command. Very good. And there we can see the difference maybe in this case is minimal, because I drew the spline closer to the arc, but it is a much nicer and softer transition than the typical G1 fillet. So this is one very easy way to create a custom rounding. So the main body at this point is basically done, so we can hide it, and I will call this tip study. Very good. I will turn on the site one more time, because now what we would take a look at is how can we do the handle. I wanted to create a sketch that, as you can see, will run at an angle into my dustpan body. To do this easily, I created first a construction plane. Let me show you now how we do this. We go to Add, then Construction Plane, select the type. In this case here, perpendicular to edge. Select the edge or the sketch element, and then we can click on it and specify where we would like this to be or move this around. Very easy. Okay. So when I select this construction plane and then with my finger double tap, the system goes into orthographic view right onto that construction plane, and then I can create a sketch on it. So here I created the sketch for the handle. To make things also here a little bit easier, I drew one element on the right side, then a line on the left side. I made them tangent, and both lines I set equal. So when I adjust just one dimension, you see how the other line updates too. Pretty nice. And then I created the profile via the control spline, but you can see that I used more points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I always have 2 here on the right and left, and these points are vertical. So when I how could I say that? When later I create the body, the right side will be more vertical. And also here, this point I can move further down. You see how then this upper part remains more vertical. I just cannot move this in, because then actually things start to bend too much. If we would only use, let's do this for one exercise, use 4 points. There you see that at the beginning, so right there and right there, the spline instantly starts to actually bend. Okay. So this sketch, then I can extrude. I took a measurement before, so I know this should be around 5 inches. And let me see, where's the other one? There. This then actually looked a little bit too long for me, so I switched this back to 4 inches. You see there is another sketch right there. The nice thing about Shapr, when you have flat faces on bodies, you can use these faces also as a canvas to sketch onto. So let me hide this, and I hide everything else. So I simply selected this face and with my finger double tapped it, and that pretty much works like the construction plane. Because now I have a geometry in front of me, I can snap to it, project, for example, this edge in, and I drew the next sketch. And I made this a little bit bigger because I want the handle to taper out to the end, but the top edge I want to remain not moving. I only want the kind of like the left and the right and the bottom area to expand. So that was a process then how I created these two sketches. This body was only for study purpose, so then I removed it, and then here I had my I have my two sketch elements, and I can loft them. Very good. So and then based on how long actually this line in the sketch is, that would define the angle of these lines. So as you can see also here, this is actually pretty easy. So this is now my handle study. Okay. There we can see the handle is actually not really well intersecting, so let's drag this into the body, so this is better. And what can we do now to make this look nicer? Let's turn on the side sketch. I'd like to point something out. So there you see that I created this geometry a little bit under this line, and this was actually the center point for this plane which I created on it, and then I made the sketch on it, and you can see that the sketch I created is a little bit under this blue line. Okay, this is not a big problem. With the pencil I simply double select the whole body, then I move the 3D widget onto the face, go to a side view, you see how the widget is rotated, and then simply move this up. And I moved this a little bit on purpose over it. Okay. So what I can do now at this point is first I select both bodies and join them. Very nice. So this is joined. Now I would like to figure out, well, where is the actual final shape. So I will select all the sketches I have here from the side and extrude this out sufficiently. 10 inches, yeah, that looks good. Then let's hide all this, and we set this to 20. And use my study object, select both objects, and then say intersect. So now I have a much nicer idea of how this looks. The next logical steps to evaluate is, how far can I round this? 0.25, that looks nice. How far can I round this? So not too much, because then I will get into some problems down here. 0.5 definitely. Okay. Maybe let's try out a shelling. 0.09, so 2 millimeters. Okay, yeah, that actually looks pretty good. I would like, however, on this face to have something that when I brush dirt or objects onto it, it doesn't fall off. So I need something that goes up, which means at this point, let's actually undo our shelling. And I will go back to the top sketch and show you what I have here. Okay, so you see there's this rectangle. I did a really simple modeling. So this rectangle, this line is roughly 1/2 inch away from the left edge, and it has 1 inch depth. Then this I extrude up. So this edge will be around 0.25 inches above the inside surface. The front is way too high. So I can select the front line, actually select both, and just move this one down. And I pay attention to when does it start to intersect my sketch. Kind of like there. So this is good. This line here, this is too vertical. So I will move this a little bit to the left. Yeah, and we can do the same also on the side. Minus 0.125. Okay. What I do on one side, I have to do on the other side too. Very good. Yeah, that looks better. To make this even nicer, some edge rounding, and here too. Very good. So the reason why I did this is so I see where everything is. This looks pretty good. So from my study object, I would like this other object to be subtracted. So first I select the dustpan, then this other volume, and I cut it away. Let's hide the sketch. This looks pretty good. I can round this corner here too. And now I will go back and add my shelling. There we are. Look how easy that was. So I hope you see actually how methodically I approach exploring the proportions and then adding all the details to it via a smart combination of sketch and modeling steps. The handle should have a hole. So I added here another construction plane. This construction plane was created via add construction plane, but this time through edge at an angle, and then you can rotate it. So 90 degrees is what I wanted. Then we select the plane with the finger double tap. There we are. And here then is the sketch for my hole. Very good. So it's just an arc on the left, an arc on the right. They both have a different radius, so the lines here will be at an angle. I also projected this line into the sketch via project, and then I did an offset, brought this in, so I could eyeball and correct actually the front and the back dimension of these two arcs. Very good. And then simply all I needed to do is select this and do a cut. There we are. So we have my opening. And then to come to the final step, which is having various colored elements. You see I split the two or the object into two parts, and the way how I did this was that at this point now to my side sketch I then added this arc. Again, this was done simply via an offset of this arc. Then I filled in the missing lines. So I have then this sketch profile. This I could extrude. like this. 20. Very good. Here's my study object. I select both. Turn on copy. Move this forward and back. Very good. So I made a copy on each side. With these two selected, I will now select intersect. And OK. And I have my intersected object. And then the last step, the dustpan, I would like this part to be removed from. There we are. Pretty cool. Gray is a little bit difficult to read. To visualize that the front part is an overmolded piece, let's go to Tools and Color. We can select a color, select the body, select another color, select the other body, click OK. And that is the process I used to create this very attractive looking dustpan. Again, I hope this narrative approach, showing you all the basic sketches and talking a little bit about what is unique about the sketches, and then showing you how step by step I continued adding sketches and started first modeling basic representations before I then really spent time into adding the final details. That this was nice and illustrative.